arrival windows with Dish. Ranked #1 in customer service nationally by J.D. Power and our customers. Dish. Tuned into you.
Today's workplace is rapidly changing, and HR professionals must be at the top of their game. Nothing spells that more clearly than SHRM CP and SHRM SCP, the profession's premier competency-based certifications from SHRM. Ongoing training to help you build a thriving workplace and keep your HR career on the move. SHRM CP, SHRM SCP. Credentials that say,
I am ready.
Because I am.
I am.
I am SHRM certified.
Learn more at shrm.org/SHRM certified.
You have a vision. It's behind everything you do. Even when you least expect it, it comes through. You know what you want, and we can help make it real. You need choices? We've got all kinds, including special finishes and papers. And they're all absolutely guaranteed. Because you have a vision, and we have your card. 500 start at just $9.99 when you enter BC500 at Vistaprint.com.
If you just sign that first
I'm
one
so
there.
sorry. I don't feel comfortable signing that.
I don't get the math here.
Was this the same car we talked about?
What's this dealer preparation fee?
I'm so sorry. This just is not.
What we talked about.
Get the car without the car salesman. Carvana.com, the better way to buy a car.
So about an hour and 10 minutes before the president will be gavelled into the room. And you can see the lights flashing outside the Capitol building. Pretty soon we'll probably see the motorcade start to move its way from the White House over to the Capitol. And we have seen some of the buses coming in. And as is tradition, the president and the first lady have invited several special guests tonight. Melania Trump tweeting just a short time ago, I will be joined by an honorable group of Americans. Sitting with me are heroes who have served our nation in times of need, families who have suffered at the hands of evil, and citizens who have embraced the American dream. Here now, Bill Bennett served as on 2 Republican administrations, knows a thing or two about how it all works tonight.
Right.
He's also a Fox News contributor. Bill, good to see you in person.
Good to see you, too.
So talk to me a little bit about the importance of tonight, the importance of these guests that are chosen for these big nights.
Well, I think it's a great night. You know, I was listening to someone say we don't really need this. We don't need it, but I think it's a good idea. Otherwise, when do all the branches gather together under one roof, you know, at an inauguration, at a state funeral? Otherwise, they don't. And I think it's good. When the camera pans tonight, you see the president, the vice president, the speaker, the generals, the Supreme Court, the members of the House.
Impressive moment.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty impressive.
So there's always one cabinet member who's missing.
Right.
And that person is the designated survivor, just in case, God forbid, something happened in that chamber. And that was you.
That was me a couple of times. I began to feel picked on a little bit.
I want to go.
Yeah, and I said, where are we going? And they said, we're going, we can't tell you. We went to Albuquerque and then and back. Yeah, I don't know why, but here's the story. I said to the guy who's taking care of me, who's that guy? He said, he's the military aide. I said, what does he have? He said, he has the nuclear codes.
So you
I
went
said,
with him.
I'm the Secretary of Education. I
don't want to push the button necessarily.
But, and then he said, any other questions? And I said, do you have Mrs. Thatcher's phone number? Just in case. But it's amazing to think about.
Yeah, it is.
And it's terrifying. It was terrifying. But you focus on it. But a couple times I was in there, and it's a great event. And, you know, this is the way we do it in this democracy. And it's nice when the president walks down, and I'm interested to see how many Democrats reach out to extend the hand.
It's always fun to watch that part.
It is fun.
Because a lot of people sort of muscle their way over to the aisle. They want that moment with the camera, with the president shaking hands, and we'll see who is looking for that. In terms of the guests in the House, it says something about the priorities of each administration in terms of who they choose.
Right. I think, and heroes, I think, is what Mrs. Trump was talking about and what the president will be talking about. And there should be heroes because it's a heroic first year in many ways. Look, go back to the campaign. Think about the promises. And one of the promises was get this economy going again. Check. Take on ISIS. ISIS has been driven out of Raqqa. Check. Immigration. He's taking on the issue big time. But already we see those numbers at the border down. Judges, the Supreme Court, we have a new Supreme Court justice. The federal courts, check. And these are actions that this man, as a candidate, said he would take, and as president has taken them. These other people are there for stories, because in addition to policy, you need a narrative. There's nothing quite like Once Upon a Time. And each of the people who's been selected to be in the gallery has one of those Once Upon a Time stories. Some of them uplifting, some of them very sad, but all American, quintessential American stories.
The president was asked today, and they released this from the luncheon that we attended, so this is on the record, you know, that he talked about the thing that had struck him the most about the job was that governing requires heart. Business requires head. He said it's all about the dollars. But this job, the first, you know, time he's done it, of course, and been there a year, has required more heart than he might have anticipated.
I think every president has probably thought about the American people and their judgment of him at some point and wanted to say, as Donald Trump might say, you're fired to the American people, but you can't. And yeah, I think this is occurring to him, and I think his appreciation of the job is deepening. I still want to see Donald Trump, the guy who's here to change things and to change the tenor of things, the tone of things, as well as the policy. But some leavening, that's fine.
What's the one thing you would tell him for tonight?
I would tell him to be strong and to be affirmative, to remind people of what it is he promised and what it is he's delivering, because I think it's very, very important. Remember, people are watching this. Most of the people who are watching this do not watch Fox News Channel 5 hours a day like I do, and you a couple of times. But, you know, they have an impression of it. Yeah. And for a lot of Americans, we know that's a negative impression or an indifferent impression. So he needs to come across to them as if he's meeting them for the first time.
Bill Bennett, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Right. We'll be right back with some final thoughts as we count down to the president's first State of the Union address, live from our nation's capital.
Guys, I really love what you've done with the place.
Thanks. Yeah, still needs a little bit of work. You guys don't happen to know a good handyman, do you? We might know someone. Outstanding. Could you possibly get a background check on them?
Just to be safe. Also, get a bunch of quotes, check all the reviews, and match us with the best pros for the job.
And book an appointment for, say, next Tuesday at 9?
10's better, babe.
Perfect. Who wants a burger?
You can't expect your neighbors to do everything Home Advisor can. So to find and instantly book a background-checked home pro for free, just ask Home Advisor.
Teddy's a pitmaster. When it comes to playing with fire, nobody does it better. He's also a volunteer firefighter. But when it comes to mortgages, he's less confident. Fortunately for Teddy, there's Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. It's simple, so he can understand the details and get approved in as few as 8 minutes. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidently. Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans.
I'm on the move all day long, and sometimes I don't eat the way I should. So I drink Boost.
Boost High Protein Nutritional Drink has 15 grams of protein to help maintain muscle and 26 essential vitamins and minerals, including calcium and vitamin D. Boost High Protein. Be up for it.
After a DVT blood clot, I sure had a lot on my mind. My 30-year marriage, my 3-month-old business. Plus, what if this happened again? I was given warfarin in the hospital, but wondered, was this the best treatment for me? So I made a point to talk to my doctor. He told me about Eliquis. Eliquis treats DVT and PE blood clots and reduces the risk of them happening again. Not only does Eliquis treat DVT and PE blood clots, Eliquis also had significantly less major bleeding than the standard treatment. Eliquis had both, and that turned around my thinking.
Don't stop Eliquis unless your doctor tells you to. Eliquis can cause serious and, in rare cases, fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve or abnormal bleeding. If you had a spinal injection while on Eliquis, call your doctor right away if you have tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. While taking Eliquis, you may bruise more easily, and it may take longer than usual for bleeding to stop. Seek immediate medical care for sudden signs of bleeding, like unusual bruising. Eliquis may increase your bleeding risk if you take certain medicines. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures.
Eliquis treats DVT and PE blood clots, plus had less major bleeding. Both made Eliquis right for me. Ask your doctor if switching to Eliquis is right for you.
Long John Silver's lets you skip your trip to the same old, and indulge in the different new. Like our classic Alaskan cod and shrimp basket for just $5.99. Change up what you're used to at Long John Silver's.
I'll never find a safe used car.
Start at thenewcarfax.com.
Show me minivans with no reported accidents.
Boom.
Love it. Show me the Carfax.
Start your used car search at the all-new Carfax.com.
Do you want clean, stain-free dentures? Try Polident. The 4-in-1 cleaning system kills 99.99% of odor-causing bacteria, cleans where brushing may miss, helps remove stains, and prevents stain buildup. Use Polident daily.
Liberty Mutual stood with me when this guy got a flat tire in the middle of the night.
Hold on, Dad. Liberty did what?
Yeah, Liberty Mutual 24-hour roadside assistance helped him to fix his flat so he could get home safely.
My dad says our insurance doesn't have that. Don't worry, I know what a lug wrench is, Dad. Is this a lug wrench?
Maybe. You can leave worry behind when Liberty stands with you. Liberty stands with you. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
President Trump's first State of the Union, from where our nation stands right now to his big plans for America. Watch as Bret Baier and Martha McCallum anchor the State of the Union, followed by the Democratic response. Then Donald Trump Jr. reacts on a special Hannity.
See you back here in a bit. Send things over to my good friend, Tucker Carlson.
Hey, Martha, thank you. See you in a minute. Well, Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. It is T-minus 1 hour until President Trump's first State of the Union address. The speech will be his best chance, or biggest anyway, to set the agenda in a critical midterm election year. Tonight, our roster of guests is long. It includes Brit Hume, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, Democratic Congressman Tim Ryan, former DNC Chair Donna Brazile. She'll tell us about the left's 6 separate responses to the speech tonight. Well, former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley will explain why President Clinton's position on illegal immigration is now considered racist 20 years later. Also on the program, a Republican congressman who says illegals in attendance tonight ought to be arrested on the spot. But first up, an overview. What can we expect tonight from this speech? Fox senior political analyst Brit Hume has seen a lot of them. He has perspective. He joins us tonight. Thanks for coming on, Brit. So,
you bet, Tucker.
The obvious question, every president goes into these trying to accomplish things, maybe one big thing. What do you think this president hopes to accomplish with this speech?
Well, I think he's hoping that he can get the Democratic opposition to warm up to him a bit. After a confrontational and quite combative first year in office, he's looking ahead with his agenda in his hand to see what he can get done, and he sees that he can't do it with 50 votes in the Senate, and he might be able to command the House. So he needs to get the Democrats to come along with him. That's what the DACA proposal is about. And so the tone, I think, will be different from what we heard in his inaugural address, more like what we heard in that speech he made to Congress last year, which was not officially a State of the Union address, but for all intents and purposes it was. Same setting, same audience, and so on. Same TV audience, one presumes. So I think that's what he's going to be trying to do. It's going to be interesting to see him do it because, being warm and cuddly and friendly and accommodating is not what he's famous for.
No. So this will be very unlike the rallies he's been doing all year. Does he have any hope of winning any Democrats? Are they allowed to support him in any way now, do you think?
Well, let's look first of all at the immigration issue, which I think is front and center now because we have deadlines coming up and so forth. We had a government shutdown over it just recently. I think, he's made what I think from the conservative side would be seen as a pretty generous offer, not only to legalize and provide a path to citizenship for the DACA group already here, but to all those who are eligible for that program who have not yet signed up for it. We're talking about well in excess of 1 million people. And for that, he wants a set of border and security measures, which Democrats do not like and are disinclined to give him. But if they want DACA enough, then he's got a real chance of getting enough to get it passed and call it a victory if he can tame a rebellion on his right, which is another issue he's going to have to deal with. So that's an example of the kind of thing he faces. Possible, but not easy.
Not easy. So what do you think he can say tonight to at least lower the temperature on the left? So I guess he doesn't want the rage on the Democratic side to build to such a point that it creates a wave in the midterm. So what's the fastest way to decelerate?
That's exactly right. That what I think he's understandably concerned about, and I would be too, were he or one of his advisors, is that the rage which you described translates into turnout.
Yes.
And the level of distaste for this president on the American left and to some extent on the American center is very high, and it would help him a lot if he could begin to diminish that. He's not going to win these Democrats over, so they're going to vote for him or vote for his party. But if he can reduce the level of their rage, he might be able to reduce the turnout in the midterm. And so, we'll probably see tonight a sunny and optimistic president. Yes, he'll boast about his achievements, and there are some certainly. And he will paint a rosy picture of the future and try to be sort of uplifting. And we'll see if he's able also to be generous in his gestures to the opposition. I think he's capable of it. It'll be interesting to see him do it.
Yeah, he can. I think he can meet that. But thanks a lot for that. That was interesting.
Bet.
Immigration clearly the dominant issue in the country right now, and it will be going into tonight's speech. Recently, Democrats have stepped up the intensity of their rhetoric. The latest, they're denouncing the term chain migration as, you may have guessed it, racist.
Look what they're doing with family unification, making up a fake name, chain. They like the word chain. That sends tremors through people.
I think a lot of President Trump's rhetoric is racist. When someone uses the phrase chained migration, it is intentional in trying to demonize families, literally trying to demonize families and make it a racist slur. It is not right.
At least 24 Democratic congressmen, at least one Republican, have brought illegal immigrants to Capitol Hill to watch the speech tonight, sending the defiant message that American law is irrelevant even in the chamber where it's made. Congressman Tim Ryan is a Democrat from Ohio. His guest is an empty seat, and he's keeping it empty in honor of a constituent who has been deported. The congressman joins us tonight. Congressman, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Tucker.
So your seat is empty in honor of one of your constituents who was deported, and you're trying to put a name and a face. November of an OD. He was 27. He was a member of the Laborers Union in Youngstown, Local 125. He went to Fitch High School. He leaves behind his parents, 3 brothers, a sister, and a grandmother. Randy Steeler of Youngstown died in April. He was 55. He played guitar, rode his Harley. He spent 30 years as a truck driver. He was a Steelers fan. Those are names and faces, and I wonder why you're not keeping a seat open to honor them.
Well, we've been trying to honor them with our work. If you're talking about the heroin epidemic that's been raging through places like Ohio and New Hampshire and West Virginia, we've been working real hard to get President Trump not just to declare it an emergency, but to put some real resources behind prevention and treatment. And what President Trump tried to do with his health care bill was throwing people off of health care so they would not have the opportunity to get the kind of treatment and recovery that they would need, Tucker. So you honor people through your actions, and I want to honor Amr for sure. But there's Teamsters who aren't getting their pensions. Their pension's going to get cut in half. I want to honor them too. There's coal miners who have lost their pension. I want to honor them too.
Well,
there's a lot of people
and I think you should.
need us to work on their behalf.
I think you should, but you're not doing that tonight symbolically. And I agree with you, of course. Honoring someone is much more than leaving a seat open. But that's what you're choosing to do tonight. You have one seat open, and you're leaving it open for someone who's deported, not for the people losing their pensions or your constituents who've died, the thousands of them in Ohio who died last year of drug ODs, but for someone who was deported for fraud. Why is that?
Hey, Tucker, you're talking about this issue. And so, therefore, this empty seat is already working because you're talking about a man who's been in this country for 40 years, American wife, 4 American daughters, paid taxes, was the first business person to move into downtown Youngstown when no one else would to start a business. And we've had a renaissance since then because of his investment. You think it's a good idea, with a case that has a lot of discrepancy to it, for this man not to have a fair hearing of the facts of the case, which is all we asked for? You think it's a good idea that he doesn't even get a fair hearing and he gets ripped from our community and his family?
I'm not saying that.
America's
No, but
better
hold
than
on,
that,
hold on. Wait,
Tucker.
slow down. I'm not saying that. And I have no trouble believing he was a great guy. I think a lot of immigrants, including those here illegally, a lot of them are great people and they work hard. And if they're deported, it's sad. But it doesn't answer the question that what do you do with people who are here illegally? You're a lawmaker. If you don't like the law, you have a chance to change it. You're arguing instead to ignore it. Why?
No, I'm not arguing to ignore the law.
Yes, you are.
I was, in this particular case, I was asking for this man to have a fair hearing of evidence in his case that nobody has heard, that would allow him to assimilate into the country.
Yes.
And this issue we're dealing with DACA and with the Dreamers was not an issue until President Trump made it an issue. And let me just say one thing, Tucker. This is not an either-or. I am for border security. I am for making sure we have enough border patrol to make sure drugs don't get in our country. I'm for throwing felons the hell out of the country. But when you are someone who's a law-abiding citizen, you're paying taxes, you're a net benefit to the United States, I think if you pay a fine, if you pay some back taxes, and you learn English if you don't already know it, we should figure out a way in the next 5 to 10 years to get you into the country and then expedite people who are waiting in line now.
You can pass that law. And by the way, look, I think what you're describing sounds like a sad situation. There are a lot of sad situations in Ohio right now. 4,000 people died of drug ODs. 400 were deported. By a factor of 10, drug ODs are a bigger deal. And you're spending your time and the symbolic power you have to honor someone who's deported rather than one of your constituents who died of a drug OD. And I don't understand why. It's a simple question.
Hey, Tucker, I've spent more time on the opiate epidemic in my career than you have ever.
Not tonight.
And a lot of other people that are going to be criticizing me. So I'm not taking a backseat to you or anybody else on the opiate epidemic. You tell your president and your party to fund the damn bills we try to put forth to make sure that these people can get treatment.
Look, I may agree with, but let me just say, I may agree with you on some of that. No, I may agree with you. But you've got a chance to send a symbolic message, and you're sending it. We know where your priorities are.
Treatment and recovery. We know where your priorities are, Tucker.
Yeah.
Do something about it. Use your.
I am. Congressman Paul Gosar is a Republican. He represents Arizona. He's called for the police to arrest illegal immigrants in attendance at tonight's speech. Capitol Police say they don't have the resources to do that, even though they know the names of the people who are there, as well as the congressmen they're accompanying, because they're in the newspaper. Meanwhile, Republican Senator Jeff Flake tweeted this in response to Gosar's proposal, quote, "This is why we can't have nice things," meaning that when Republicans get power, they break things. He's not the only Republican who is casting aspersions on Congressman Gosar, and of course Democrats are united in their contempt for his suggestion. The congressman joins us tonight. Congressman, thanks a lot for coming on. So let me just ask you a factual question first. It's my understanding that a lot of the people who are here illegally, brought by members of Congress tonight, are in fact protected by the president's, in effect, temporary amnesty that he gave them under DACA. Are there any that you know are in the chamber tonight who are actually in current violation of federal law?
We don't know that, Tucker, because we don't know who's eligible and what's not, because what they did is they flouted it, saying I'm bringing an illegal to the State of the Union. So it just behooves us to actually know exactly who they are and actually if they were carrying identification.
So, I mean, I can't get in. I'm a member of the press for 25 years. I can't just kind of walk into the Capitol building without identification. Were they able to do that?
Well, here's the deal, is members of Congress, they were utilizing their office to bring those people in, and it wasn't getting the proper scrutiny. You know, we had an outpouring from across the country saying, if I go anywhere, I need an ID. Yeah. In fact, yesterday, Congress actually said if you're going to start a bank account with your own money, you had to have a valid ID. So once again, when you're flouting the law about illegals, you better have that proper identification. Otherwise, you don't belong here. Here's the hallowed halls and where we build laws. We ought to be upholding the laws predicated so that Americans see that no law we pass is above us or below us.
So just to be totally clear and factual about this, because your comments have driven a lot of response, including, again, from a member of your own delegation, Jeff Flake, also from Arizona. You believe that some of the illegals that members of Congress are bringing tonight have not been vetted in the same way that American citizens would have been vetted if they came to the Capitol. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. You don't have the proper identification. If you were under a program, a visa or whatever, that's proper documentation. But the way members of Congress flouted it, and particularly in this president's face, that's what we suspected. And you know what? If that's what we suspect, you should apply to the same letter of the law that all the rest of everybody has to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, you'd think at least they would be held to the standards that Americans are, not to some different and sort of special standard. So quickly, why did your senator Jeff Flake attack you, if in fact he was attacking you when he sent out that tweet? What did that mean?
Oh, he absolutely is. We don't see eye to eye on this issue, Tucker. What I want to have is a conversation about all the issues about immigration, to make sure that we reward legal immigration, not reward illegal immigration. You know, I've got children, and what you do is you help children by saying, listen, this is the best way to do it, and when they do something wrong, they go into timeout. What about the victims that are standing in line for tens and tens of years and hundreds of thousands of dollars? They're the true victims. And then we also have to take on, you know, states like California that are taking a fight right to the federal government. In my state, you can't be against 1070 and for California. We got to pick this fight. Me and the senator don't see eye to eye, and I don't take his crap.
Well, and let me just say really quick in closing, I mean, he didn't actually respond to your point at all or make a case against you. He just dismissed you as if you were a child, which is, of course, the hallmark of a dumb person.
You know, Tucker, we've been crossed before. We had a conversation about his vote with Loretta Lynch and about his duties as a senator, and he lost that display in front of
Congressman, thank you.
In the audience.
We're out of time.
Thanks,
Good luck
Tucker.
tonight. Got a live view of the Capitol, the State of the Union, less than an hour from right now. The president's motorcade currently en route from the White House. Newt Gingrich joins us in just a minute to discuss what we can expect at the end of the hour.
Tucker Carlson is brought to you by Alka-Seltzer Plus Maximum Strength Liquid Gels.
When you have a cold, stuff happens. Nothing relieves more symptoms than Alka-Seltzer Plus Maximum Strength Liquid Gels.
Coaching means making tough choices.
Jim, you're in.
But when you have high blood pressure and need cold medicine that works fast, the choice is simple. Coracetin HBP is the #1 brand that gives powerful cold symptom relief without raising your blood pressure. Coracetin HBP.
Take off for Mexico with Expedia. One click gives you access to discounts on thousands of hotels, cars, and things to do, like the Royalton Riviera Cancun, for 54% off. Everything you need to go. Expedia.
In the modern world, it pays to switch things up. You can switch and save time. You can switch and save worry. You can switch and save hassle. And when you switch to Esurance, you can save time, worry, hassle, and, yep, money. In fact, drivers who switched from Geico to Esurance saved hundreds. So you might want to think about pulling the old switcheroo. That's auto and home insurance for the modern world. Esurance, an Allstate company. Click or call.
Oh, you brought Butch.
Yeah.
He's looking at me right now, isn't he?
Yep.
Butch is like an old soul that just hates my guts.
You can never have too many faithful companions. That's why I got a Subaru Crosstrek.
Love is out there. Find it in a Subaru Crosstrek.
Fox News Channel on Sirius XM. Your favorite shows on Channel 114. Plus, every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7 at Channel 115.
You won't see these folks at the post office. They have businesses to run. They have passions to pursue. How do they avoid trips to the post office? Stamps.com. Mail letters. Ship packages. All the services of the post office right on your computer. Get a 4-week trial plus $100 in extras, including postage and a digital scale. Go to stamps.com/try and never go to the post office again.
Are the credit cards in your wallet actually the best ones for you? At NerdWallet, we sort through over 1,200 credit cards to find the top cards for balance transfer, travel, earning rewards, and other perks. Using your unique info to narrow the search, NerdWallet makes it easy to find credit cards that work harder than the ones you have now. Stop missing out. Visit nerdwallet.com to find the cards that are made for you.
We made a mistake, and we're the first to correct them always. That was not the president's motorcade, but indeed the first lady's you saw a moment ago making its way to the Capitol. The president will be en route shortly. The Capitol gradually filling up in anticipation of the State of the Union, the president's first. The address is just over half an hour away. What can we expect from the president? What's he going to say? How does he connect to his supporters and the large pool of people who don't approve but are open-minded? Maybe not a large pool, but there are some. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich joins us tonight, a very connected person. You are very connected. What do you think he's going to say, Mr. Speaker?
Well, I think this is going to be a speech about America, about our identity as a country. I suspect he's going to talk as President of the United States, not the leader of the Trump faction. I think he's going to say legitimately that the economic policy is working and that people are already seeing it in their pocketbook in ways that are real and vivid and tangible. And I think he's going to call for a bipartisan effort to fix immigration, both in terms of the dreamers, but also in terms of protecting Americans from people who have been here illegally and who've committed crimes. And I think he has several guests. I mean, if you go down the list of who the guests are, he has several guests who had direct relationship to being attacked by MS-13, the El Salvadorian gang, other kind of problems. So I think it'll be a speech designed to set the stage for a year of trying to work on things. I mean, I think Trump understands that the next phase of where he's at is to find a way to do infrastructure that has to be bipartisan, find a way to get to a bipartisan agreement on immigration, but to do it within a framework that's his values and his beliefs.
So you said he's going to talk about America as a whole country, not just a series of groups. It's not an identity politics vision.
No, if you go back and you look at his inaugural address, which I think is really underestimated and understudied, he talked there about the fact that even at the level of eliminating racism by saying, look, we all bleed the same color blood. We're all related. He said, you cannot be a patriotic American and be a racist. I mean, and I think he will talk about America. I actually thought there was a pretty good preview in Davos, which I think surprised the global elite, because he was unapologetic, but he also wasn't hostile. He said, look, I'm for America first, and I expect Merkel's for Germany first.
Bitcoin doesn't care where you're born, what color your skin is, or where you are in the world. It's an open network. It's maintained equally by people all over the world. Anyone can verify the transactions, and it happens instantly. For just a few cents, you can send any amount of money to anywhere in the world. Bitcoin is a
time the last 30 years. Well, that's a real tangible result.
For sure. You know. His aides say he's not going to mention Russia. It's not in the text of the speech. Do you think he will not mention Russia for the course of the speech?
If I'm guessing, this is a guess, because I mean, presidents can change things in the car on the way up.
Even now, yeah.
My guess is that they reached the conclusion that to have a single word about Russia in that speech guarantees that the New York Times and Washington Post headlines are only about that paragraph, and that they then get to avoid covering things. And this is one of the greatest problems the administration has, that its messages have a half-life of a very short time because the elite media hates covering them. And I think actually the great challenge for the president is not tonight. My prediction is this will be a very successful speech. It will come across very well, and it will have a lot of things that most Americans, 60 or 70% of us, can identify with. The real challenge for him is going to be keeping momentum up tomorrow through Sunday and staying on these themes and not getting drug off by the news media who want to, put out some chum in the water and see if they can get Trump to go talk about something that's not productive.
So really quick, you've seen a million of these speeches. You've been involved, I think, in the formation of some of them. How much of it is ad lib? Is every word the president speaks?
Very small amount is ad lib for a speech that's this important. Now, again, Bill Clinton one time was rewriting the speech in the car on the way up. So you can't, Trump certainly has the prerogative, and during the campaign, I was with him a couple of times when you would literally be rewriting something as the plane was coming into land to go to some kind of a campaign event.
It's amazing.
So, but and every president occasionally, if you read the text and then you watch the speech, every president will ad-lib something. I mean, they'll get to a point, they'll sense the audience, and they'll follow the rhythm of the audience to some limited extent. But I think these things are pretty well thought of. most presidential teams understand this is the biggest audience of the year for them. It's their best chance to reach people who normally will not watch them. And therefore, I think they try to think it through pretty carefully.
Control it. Mr. Speaker, thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you.
Appreciate it. Our live coverage of the House floor and tonight's State of the Union continues right after this.
It's easy to think that all money managers are pretty much the same. But while some push high commission investment products, Fisher Investments avoids them. Some advisors have hidden and layered fees. Fisher Investments never does. And while some advisors are happy to earn commissions from you, whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. Maybe that's why most of our clients come from other money managers. Fisher Investments, clearly better money management.
Patrick woke up with a sore back, but he's got work to do. So he took a leave this morning. If he'd taken Tylenol, he'd be stopping for more pills right now. Only Aleve has the strength to stop tough pain for up to 12 hours with just one pill. Tylenol can't do that. Aleve, all day strong, all day long. And for pain relief and a good night's rest, try Aleve PM for a better aim.
Running a business is not for the faint of heart. Luckily, Office Depot Office Max is here to take care of you. With print services. Done right, on time, guaranteed. Expert tech support. And this week, all Dell PCs are up to 25% off. Save even more when you purchase a Dell monitor. And make sure you protect your investment. Office Depot Office Max. OfficeDepot.com.
Taking care of business.
Psst.
What?
I switched to Geico and got more.
More savings on car insurance?
Uh-huh. And an award-winning mobile app.
Well, that is more.
Oh, there's more. Mobile ID cards, emergency roadside service.
More technology.
I can even add a new driver.
Right from her phone!
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
I'm Mark, and I quit smoking with Chantix. My friends and family never thought I'd be the one to quit smoking. I was such a heavy smoker. But I was able to do it with Chantix. I did not know that Chantix would reduce my urges so significantly.
Along with support, Chantix Varenicline is proven to help people quit smoking.
Chantix reduced my urge to smoke.
When you try to quit smoking, with or without Chantix, you may have nicotine withdrawal symptoms. Some people had changes in behavior or thinking, aggression, hostility, agitation, depressed mood, or suicidal thoughts or actions with Chantix. Serious side effects may include seizures, new or worse heart or blood vessel problems, sleepwalking, or allergic and skin reactions, which can be life-threatening. Stop Chantix and get help right away if you have any of these. Tell your healthcare provider if you've had depression or other mental health problems. Decrease alcohol use while taking Chantix. Use caution when driving or operating machinery. The most common side effect is nausea.
Everybody had doubts, including me, but I did it.
Ask your doctor if Chantix is right for you. Many insurance plans cover Chantix for a low or $0 copay.
Continuing to watch everything that's happening on Capitol Hill, the president will deliver his first State of the Union address of his presidency in just a few minutes. Even after tonight's speech, Congress will continue to argue over the potential release of the now infamous 4-page memo compiled by Devin Nunes. Congressman David Cicilline is a Democrat representing Rhode Island, the smallest state, but one of the best. He joins us tonight. Congressman, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure, thanks.
So at the core of this memo, which I have not read, there are probably a lot of stuff in the memo, but here's what we know is in there. Something that we know is true, which is that Obama officials approached a federal judge and asked for a FISA warrant to surveil Carter Page, who was an advisor to the Trump campaign, on the grounds that he was a foreign agent. He was a spy for Putin's government. Do you think Carter Page was a spy for Putin's government?
Well, I can tell you I've read both the Nunes memo and the Democratic memo, so I can't talk about the contents of it. But what we do know is it was a memo prepared by a partisan, by Devin Nunes, who in fact was so partisan in this investigation that he was removed from leading it. It's a summary, or purports to be a summary, of classified documents that he's never even read.
How many nonpartisans are in Congress?
No, my point is, I just don't want people to be confused. This is not an intelligence document. This is a document prepared by a partisan person who has already demonstrated his inability to be objective. He recused himself. Wait, but let me finish. And he purports to summarize a set of documents he's never even read.
Which is why I didn't ask you a question either about Devin Nunes or about the documents. I'm asking you about publicly available information that is of concern to all Americans. The Obama administration made the case that Carter Page was a Russian agent, and on the basis of that case, spied on the Trump campaign. So I'm asking you, was that legitimate? Do you think Carter Page was a foreign agent?
Again, I cannot comment.
Why? Because I know that.
No, I can't. I haven't read any memo. But you haven't read the memo. I've read both memos.
I've read the New York Times.
I can't comment on.
No, but you don't need to have read the memo to know that.
No, but you cannot comment on things which potentially are in
on a New York Times story. You can't comment.
No, I can comment on a New York Times story.
And by the way, you just commented on the memo calling it partisan.
No. What I'm saying, I'm talking about what that memo does.
Okay, but
is
how
it
about this? Here's what we know. We know that the Obama administration argued that Carter Page was a Russian agent and used that information to spy on the Trump campaign. Is that okay, is my question. What do you think of that?
We have in place, and again, I cannot comment about this particular
No, how about what I just said?
No, what I'm saying is we have certainly in the public domain an ongoing investigation about Russian interference in our elections. There is a process to conduct that investigation which is underway. This is sadly another attempt to undermine that investigation, to create this memo and this whole release.
I'm sure there's a lot of politics, but
no,
but hold on. As an American, I'm wondering about Carter Page.
I don't want anyone to interfere with American presidential elections.
Okay, but I'm not trying to. But my other concern as an American is that the government might be spying on people for political reasons. And we know that the Obama administration spied. This is, I mean, dispute this if you will. Am I wrong? Did Obama agencies surveil the Trump campaign or not?
I will tell you this. I take any allegation about government surveillance very serious. I spent my career practicing criminal defense work and civil rights work.
It's a really simple question. Did the Obama administration authorize spying? Hold on. Just let me finish the question. Sure. And then I really want you to do your best just to answer this question. And I'll concede every other point. Did the Obama administration, as news reports suggest, authorize spying on someone involved in the Trump campaign?
I cannot answer that question based on my review of the memo.
Would you be concerned about it if you found that to be true?
I would be concerned at any time that a process was not followed, created by the FISA court and all the standards that apply to that.
But
I've seen no evidence to suggest that.
But no one's alleging that. No one's alleging that the federal judge who approved that warrant was out of line or the people who asked for it. I just want to know what you think of the allegation that Carter Page was a Russian spy, because it seems insane, because now he's on MSNBC. He graduated from the Naval Academy. It's not like this guy is disloyal that we know to his country.
No. Again, we have lots of examples where the federal government conducts investigations, both counterintelligence and criminal investigations. That's an important part of what they do.
But does it make you nervous of a political campaign? So like if,
no,
if
it doesn't make me nervous.
That the Trump campaign
because
3 years from now spies on the Kamala Harris campaign.
Because it doesn't make me nervous because I have confidence in the men and women, the professionals at the FBI who take their responsibilities seriously, who have a whole range of responsibilities to meet. There's oversight.
So don't ask questions about the government because
no, I'm not saying don't ask questions.
Heroes.
But what we're engaged, sadly, what we're seeing now is just an ongoing effort to smear the FBI, to attack, not by you, I'm saying the Republicans in Congress. And the problem is it's an effort to undermine this investigation, I think, to set the stage for the termination. For the firing of Robert Mueller and Rod Rosenstein.
These are real questions. I'm a civil libertarian. Democrats used to be. Now they're pure political hacks.
But why is that? Why is it, Tucker, then, when the Democrats sought release of the Democratic memorandum, which went point by point to answer those questions, every single Republican on that committee voted against it?
I don't know. I think it should all be released tomorrow. I mean, I'm on the releasing side, always. Congressman, thank you.
My pleasure. Great to be with you.
Looking at live pictures of the White House there, the president is leaving shortly. President Trump's address less than 30 minutes from now, the first State of the Union of his presidency. Up next, we'll ask a former Democratic National Committee chair what the Democratic Party is going to do in response tonight in the chamber. How will they react? We'll get that next.
The odds are staggering. The plan is daring. Initiate now. Darkest Hour is nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Actor Gary Oldman and Best Picture of the Year.
We shall never surrender!
Darkest Hour, rated PG-13.
Megan's a lawyer. When it comes to presenting evidence, nobody does it better. She's also is close to finding Bigfoot, but when it comes to mortgages, she's less confident. Fortunately for Megan, there's Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. It's simple, so she can understand the details and get approved in as few as 8 minutes. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidently. Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans.
Dry mouth has been a problem for me. I just drank tons of water all the time. It was never enough. My dentist suggested Biotene. My mouth felt more lubricated. I used Biotene rinse. And then I used the spray. Biotene did make a difference.
Your brain changes as you get older, but Prevagen helps your brain with an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, the name to remember.
When you have diabetes, hydrating your skin is vital.
Gold Bond Diabetics Dry Skin Relief. 90% saw noticeable skin improvement in 1 hour.
My skin feels nourished, healthy.
Gold Bond Diabetics Dry Skin Relief.
Why do you need a modern software factory? Hey, do you like that app?
Not really.
That's why. And that's a big deal, because a bad experience is bad for business. So you need to continuously build, test, and deliver amazing apps, predicting problems before they ever become problems. Impossible, you say? Well, actually...
Oh, hey, I like this one.
Do you have a life insurance policy you no longer need or can't afford? Now you can sell your policy for an immediate payment.
We bought life insurance when our kids were young, to protect their future.
Our youngest just turned 40, and we no longer needed the coverage.
That got us to thinking about letting our policy go. So I did some research and called Coventry Direct. I learned that you could sell all or part of a life insurance policy, even a term life policy. Turns out, people have been selling policies like ours for the past 15 years. Who knew? We sold our policy. Now we have money to help with the medical bills.
And to add to our retirement.
If you have $100,000 or more of life insurance, you may be a candidate to sell your policy. Call 1-800-471-6800 or visit CoventryDirect.com for a free information packet. 1-800-471-6800. Coventry Direct, redefining insurance.
We're now less than a half an hour from the president's first State of the Union address as president. You're looking live at the White House. The president is about to depart from there, and now we're going to take you live for the first time to the House floor. Hundreds of members of Congress, several dozen illegal immigrants who've accompanied them will watch the president's address. Speaker Paul Ryan is about to call the House to order. Will there be no fewer than 6 responses to the president's address from the left? One of them has already happened last night. Celebrities and activists, 2 categories that have become virtually the same, gathered in New York for the so-called People's State of the Union address. Here's part of it.
As we seek to rid ourselves of Trump, we must also cleanse our American soul of its white male privilege, its voracious greed, and its enforced ignorance.
Don't feel complacent about the Trump administration's dismal approval ratings right now until he and his whole racist crony cabinet are out of power.
Donna Brazile was famously chair of the DNC during the 2016 election. She recently wrote and released a terrific book called Hacks about that race, and she joins us tonight. I just got to ask you, Donna, the first question. When people look at Michael Moore, do you think anybody says, I'm kind of on the fence, but that guy looks such a great guy, such a happy person. Whatever he's into, I'm going to be into.
Well, you know what?
Is there anyone who thinks that?
You know, Tuck, I watched a little bit of it. It's like an old-time revival.
Yes.
I mean, the Democratic Party is going through a period where there's so much excitement. The resistance is getting stronger. And so to have people like Michael Moore and others, look, we cannot afford to get rid of anybody. We need more people. In fact, there's an opening for you, Tuck, if you want to come on over. Come
because
on.
I listen to what your leaders say, and I'm excluded on the basis of things I can't control.
Like what?
Well,
Michael Moore? Michael Moore has he has the same tools in his toolbox. Come on.
Okay.
I don't need to open up your
So, but it's interesting. No, but there's a legitimate question here, which is, so the Democratic Party and the left is united in dislike of Trump. I understand that. And this has happened on the right, too, with Obama or Clinton or whatever. But it doesn't answer the question of who's in charge, really. What does the Democratic Party stand for? If you could point to one person who embodies the values of the party right now, who'd it be?
Well, tonight you're going to hear from two of our rising stars, Joe Kennedy and Elizabeth Guzman. They represent the future of the Democratic Party, and they're going to talk about how to build an economy that works for everyone, not just the top 1%. The Democrats are coming out of the wilderness, but we're coming out with a message that will resonate with the American people who work paycheck to paycheck, who want to see more than a trickle-down tax cut.
So I hear that and I say the message, okay, so here's a party that nominated the wife of a former president, and now the response is one of the Kennedys. I think, well, I guess it's a hereditary position leading the Democratic Party, is it?
Well, you know what? The Kennedy family, like the Clinton family, like the Dole family, like the Bush family, these are families that have dedicated themselves to public service. I am very excited about hearing Joe Kennedy III.
But that seems more the past than the future, doesn't it? But I've heard he's a great guy for whatever it's worth.
Elizabeth Guzman, I mean, she is a rising star. We have so many rising stars, young people who are running for office. You know, we have a record number of women who are running this cycle as well. So keep the door open, Tucker. You can come
Anyone
in.
from the Mondale family?
Well, not that I know of.
Okay,
but,
just checking.
Oh,
so a couple years ago,
we got Jimmy Carter, we got Al Gore, we got a lot of people.
It's exactly
come
the greatest.
It's great.
So at one of President Obama's State of the Union addresses, famously, a member from South Carolina, Mr. Wilson, jumped up and said, "You lie." And was basically jumped on by people from both sides on the basis of the fact that was not civil behavior.
Correct.
Do you think you're going to see something like that tonight? Are you going to see open expressions of rudeness?
No, no. First of all, the party really believes in civility, and Leader Pelosi has already, the Democratic Party, Leader Pelosi has already said, look, the members are coming. They're coming with undocumented dreamers and others, immigrants. Immigrants are the foundation of our society, the foundation of our country. Many of the members are bringing their constituents to the State of the Union. The president will have a gallery full of people. This is a night for President Trump to pivot, to talk to all of the American people, not just his base. He has a unique opportunity to not just sell what he's accomplished, but to reach out to Democrats.
Do you think illegal aliens, people who are non-citizens here illegally, are they part of the, quote, American people?
You know, I know a lot of undocumented immigrants who are here, who are trying to find a path to citizenship. They're paying taxes. We want them to come out of the shadows. I do believe tonight the president can send them a message. He can send a message to people who are, you know, serving as firemen, they're policemen. These dreamers are in college, they're doctors.
But what message should he send to people who aren't citizens, can't vote, and shouldn't be here in the first place?
Well, come on, Tucker. Some of them came with their parents.
Well, I think some of them are really nice people.
We should not penalize them.
I'm not saying we should, but do you think they're the same as citizens?
You know, it's time that we embrace what Ronald Reagan was able to accomplish in 1986 with the immigration bill. And if we do that, I think, come on, I'm trying to channel my inner Reagan.
If we do that, the Democratic Party will rule until the sun goes dark.
Well, we got a supermoon coming tomorrow. And
Donna, we're out of time, but I love your way with words. Thank you for coming on tonight.
It's always a pleasure to be with you. Hey, the door is open.
You make a bitter medicine palatable, and I appreciate it.
The door is open.
I know it is. Not coming. We're still waiting for the president to depart for the Capitol. Meanwhile, Fox News contributor Pete Hegseth, who more than capably hosts Fox and Friends Weekend, you see him every Saturday and Sunday, just published a piece warning that the president's speech tonight could lock him into a bad immigration deal if he's not careful. Very smart piece. We want to have Pete on to explain what he meant by that. Hey, Pete, what did you mean by that?
What I mean is the president has gotten it right every time he's remembered the forgotten man. And this opening bid from the White House, which gives, let's call it what it is, it's amnesty to 1.8 million illegal immigrants, whether justified or so, some portion of that, to focus on that, to let that be the fulcrum on which the deal lasts, I think could turn off a lot of Trump supporters who this president who said, we elected you to put us first, not illegal immigrants. So if you're going to cut a deal, make sure that you secure the border first, that you end chain migration first, that you end the visa lottery program first because Tucker, we all know what the swamp does. The swamp will do everything they can to undo this. I trust President Trump and his approach on immigration reform. I don't trust the permanent Washington bureaucracy, Capitol Hill, and future presidents who will attempt to undo it if given the chance. So, to me, this opening bid, I think we should reserve judgment on the entire deal until its future manifestation. But right now, it's not
I agree
a good
with that. But so as you know the president, you're a Trump supporter. I think you understand his voters well.
Yep.
If the final deal gives citizenship to over 2 million illegal immigrants and allows chain migration to go on, for the next 10 years, say, increasing that number much higher than that, is that going to be adequate? Is that okay for Trump voters? What are they going to think of that?
I think that's a non-starter. I think a pathway to legalization is one thing. A pathway to citizenship and voting citizenship is another, let alone not just dreamers, but also the chain migration that comes with the next. If you don't, chain migration is the big one, Tucker. If you don't, you can have a wall all day long, and a wall is extremely important, and Trump supporters expect that. But if you don't curtail chain migration, then you don't ultimately solve this problem because you have no control over your immigration system. You don't know who's coming and going. There is no merit. You talk about it a lot in your program, merit-based immigration, understanding who's coming into your country. He was elected to do just that. Standing on that firm ground is critical. Joe Kennedy's going to talk about promises made versus promises kept in the Democratic response. President Trump has made a lot of promises, and he's kept them so far. And when he's kept them, his voters have stayed with them. This is the big issue that's differentiated him from the Republican establishment. Tax cuts and health care, Republican orthodoxy. Immigration, it's where he's cut against the grain. Standing strong on that has always benefited him. We know the Democrats are going to resist him, Tucker. Even on a good deal, they've said he's a white supremacist. We can tease that out all day long. Let's work on a deal that understands the rule of law, patriotism, citizenship, sovereignty, and doesn't give away amnesty to folks who are here illegally. He just didn't run on that.
No, he didn't. Do you think the views of some of the Republican senators who've been involved in crafting this legislation, I'm thinking of Jeff Flake of Arizona, particularly Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, do you think their views mirror those of Trump's voters, of the Republican electorate, of the people who put this president in power in the first place?
No, I mean, I've known Lindsey Graham for years, but there's a reason he got 1% in the primary, is because he doesn't reflect the Republican electorate, and his views aren't in keeping with
Pete,
our
you
American
can probably, I just want to interrupt really quickly. You can see on your screen that's the President of the United States walking to his limousine on his way to the Capitol for his first State of the Union address. I'm sorry, Pete, go ahead.
Absolutely, and you can imagine the weight of the world is on him. What he says tonight will stick with him as it pertains to a deal on immigration. He's going to talk about bipartisanship, but it's been clear so far that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have no interest in reaching across the aisle. And if he's going to reach so-called moderate Democrats, Tucker, on the Senate side, it better be so based on political imperative and not on giveaways, because Trump supporters are not going to be okay with giveaways on amnesty, giveaways on chain migration, giveaways on visa lotteries if they don't get a wall and they don't get actual solutions on immigration. It is his signature issue.
You want to create a stunning website? I've already done it with Wix. Let me show you how it's done. I mean, I'm gonna need to put these. I can't see without them. Just go to Wix.com. There are loads of absurdly gorgeous templates to choose from. Guys, this could take a while. First things first, I can change the text. Okay, now for my favorite part. Right here, you can do whatever you want. No rules. I'm just gonna come out and say it. I look amazing here. I mean,
Not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
Well, I happened to be there that night, and I remember vividly many Democrats, many people, including Nancy Pelosi, who's still in Congress, cheering that speech. They would now say the rhetoric you just heard is white nationalism. What's changed and why? Martin O'Malley was Democratic governor in the state of Maryland. He joins us tonight. Governor, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Tucker. Good to be with you.
Now, you know Bill Clinton well.
It was nice to hear. It was nice. I know him. Well, whoever knows Bill Clinton well. It was nice to hear a president of the United States acknowledge that we're a nation of immigrants, though.
Yeah.
I
mean, it depends what you mean by that, but it's right. I mean, basically right. But he said maybe because we ought to, and these are the words, be disturbed by the number of illegal aliens, quote, coming into this country, taking American jobs and burdening our infrastructure and social safety net. What's untrue about that?
Well, you know, I didn't research where we were in 1986 on this, but I can tell you that right now the number of foreign-born people in the United States is about what it was in 1925 when my grandparents, both of my grandfathers, were fighting in the First World War, both of them sons of immigrant people. So, Tucker, I think that the trick tonight that I think Donald Trump is trying to pull off is he needs to shift. When he comes in here, no president since Richard Nixon has walked into a State of the Union with as much of a criminal cloud of investigation hanging over him as Donald Trump has. So he is going to shift the conversation to immigrants. He's going to try to vilify, criminalize all new American
let me just say, first of all, if your grandfathers were fighting the First World War in 1925, they were the only ones. Second, I would say that members, you know, a dozen or so members of Congress have brought people here illegally with them to the speech. So it's not simply the president is using it as a distraction. This is the central issue of the Democratic Party. They just shut down the government over it. So it's not just, I mean, it's unfair to say wherever you are, it's not just a distraction. It's an important issue for the Democrats. Exactly. So let's just address the issue. Let's just hit it head on. What do you think of President Clinton's remarks? They seem reasonable to me, but do they seem reasonable to you is the question.
No, I don't believe that immigrants steal our jobs. I don't believe that that's true. I believe that in any study, reputable study you look at, you see that our country as economy actually depends on a certain level of immigration. And it's my hope that members of both parties will be able to put forward yet again another compromise, and hopefully the president will take it.
But is it that simple?
So that
I mean, look, I don't think anybody, I agree with you. There are upsides of immigration, but here's Paul Krugman. You know Paul Krugman, quote, immigration reduces the wages of domestic workers who compete with immigrants. The fiscal burden of low-wage immigrants is pretty clear. I mean, is there any downside economically at all to having a lot of low-wage labor in your country from other countries?
Look, that's not the problem we have. Last year, net immigration from Mexico was, I think, less than zero. So, look, the problem isn't that we have all these Mexicans coming into our country.
But I didn't say that. I'm asking you an economic question. Do you take it seriously? Is that something that you're concerned about at all? Is that an issue? It was an issue for Paul Krugman. It was an issue for Bill Clinton. It's an issue for a lot of voters. Do you think that's a real issue, or is it just nativism and bigotry?
No, not. I think right now it's nativism, and I don't believe that we have a level of immigration that hurts wages. I think what hurts wages is to force people to live in the shadows of our economy and not be able to live in the full light of citizenship, where they can actually, you know, get paid a decent wage for a decent day's work. That's what's a drag on our wages.
Governor,
and that's the big problem our country faces.
I appreciate your coming on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.
You're seeing the motorcade right there, right through the center of Washington. We're in the final countdown to the president's first State of the Union address. For a preview of the president's remarks, we're joined by two of the best connected and most seasoned political watchers in Washington. Fox chief political anchor and special report host Bret Baier, as well as Martha MacCallum, host of The Story with Martha MacCallum. It's great to see you both. So what can we expect? What are we going to see in just a minute?
Well, I'll tell you, it's going to be exciting. His first official State of the Union address. Obviously, we had a joint session of Congress speech last year. But as you take a look at the second lady, Mrs. Pence, getting to the box there, you will see this president, we saw him today, energized, trying to, as he says, unify a country that's pretty divided right now.
Absolutely. And we talked a little bit about immigration and just general issues in terms of what he's going to be talking about tonight. But, you know, the president this afternoon was very relaxed. I mean, when you look at, I'm looking at some of the faces as we watch everyone filling into the crowd there. You saw Trey Gowdy, who, of course, has been very involved in the investigation that's going on. And then you see the Kamala Harrises and the Cory Bookers, who are hoping that someday they're going to be in the position the president's in right now. But the president seems largely, at the moment, today, unrattled, very focused on this speech, and very much wanting to give America a unified future and to set the tone of an America that's safe and strong going forward.
So both of you mentioned the theme of unity, bringing the country together. That, I mean, so you think the White House sees that as kind of the overall biggest task they face?
I think so. I think they're going to try to hit on elements that they believe they can get some Democrats to sign on to. Infrastructure, some deal on immigration, as you take a look at the motorcade making its way up Pennsylvania Avenue. And eventually, the First Lady will take her position with some guests that we're told will be a part of this speech tonight. I think when you think State of the Union addresses, Tucker, it's not usually the most decorated speech that we always point back to of a presidency, but this presidency is looking to this speech to get beyond the day-to-day story of the day, which has been the investigations, and Democrats who have really stood up to this president and not really said they were going to work with him.
So there's so much pageantry and tradition attached to this speech. Unpack some of it for us. Like what's the protocol? What happens first in the chamber?
Well, we're going to see the Sergeant at Arms as he calls the meeting to order, essentially. We've already seen Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, and the Vice President, Mike Pence, up on the podium. The President will come in. As we know, we will watch him shake hands. There's always some jockeying on the aisles. We've already seen everybody trying to get into the right position so that they might be able to shake the President's hand. It's also interesting to watch to people who don't want to be on the edge of the aisles as they walk in. We know that there's several members who are not going to be there tonight on the Democratic side. Members of the Congressional Black Caucus in particular who've decided that they don't want to be there. They said the president, they believe, doesn't respect them. So there's going to be some empty seats in the House tonight as well.
Right now you see the U.S. Supreme Court justices, Chief Justice Roberts there. Not all of the Supreme Court justices, again, will be seated here at this speech. And in the back you see Neil Gorsuch, and that is one of, obviously, this administration's, this president's biggest conservative wins, is getting Neil Gorsuch, now the 4th Supreme Court justice there on the end, to sit on this court.
So what is, if you were to kind of sum up the Democratic response, I know there are a bunch of different Democratic responses, but thematically.
Five.
Yeah, yeah, at least. So, but thematically, it seems connected to immigration. Is that fair to say, their response?
Yeah, we're going to hear from Joe Kennedy III, definitely a shining, bright young star on the Democrat side. He's an interesting choice for tonight. He's 37 years old, graduate of Harvard and Stanford, and he is clearly somebody that they would like to shine for them tonight. As we all know, it's a difficult spot. We remember Marco Rubio and the drink of water, and Bobby Jindal, who gave a sort of lackluster performance. So the focus will be on him. I mean, obviously, so much of the Democratic side has been resisting this president, so he's going to have to search for some positive messages, and what we've seen so far is that he's hitting some of the same tones in terms of unity, bringing the country together. You're going to hear some of that from Joe Kennedy as well.
And Maxine Waters is probably not going to strike the unity tone, Tucker, but of the 5, it's interesting that you have 5 different Democratic responses. In perhaps a different presidency, if the GOP was doing that, there'd be a lot of talk about how they weren't unified behind leadership in their party. But we'll see how it goes. This president has a lot on the line tonight.
So, I mean, both know the temperature in this city is really hot right now. People are emotional.
Except right here.
Yeah, except you're always pictures of cool. But I wonder, in the chamber, are Democratic leaders concerned about outbursts during the speech?
Nancy Pelosi, we're told, gave a speech that said, don't do it. Stay in line.
Interesting.
Don't have an outburst. But we may very well see that because, as you're right, tensions are high and emotions are high, especially along partisan lines.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the immigration topic is the hottest one of all that you're going to hear tonight. But, looking through at least what we have so far of this speech, the president's going to try to bring people together on this. He's going to talk about the future, that everybody should have the opportunity to thrive in America. I mean, I think it looks so far that he's trying to give a speech that is not going to be very controversial. I talked to Bill Bennett earlier, and he was saying, but he has to also maintain the strength that we've seen in him that makes him different. And that's the line that he's going to have to try to walk tonight, Tucker.
These speeches tend to be foreign policy heavy, of course, it's the president, but particularly State of the Union addresses. Do you have any idea what he's going to cover there?
Well, I think obviously he has a great story to tell about ISIS and what happened with ISIS in Iraq, in Syria. He'll talk about our commitment in Afghanistan, perhaps about the problems with Pakistan. But I think, and I've talked to a few people, that North Korea is going to be a central focus of at least the foreign policy part of this. And throughout the night, there are going to be moments, I'm told, that people will remember, and that you may see a big foreign policy moment in this speech. His biggest focus, though, will be on the economy and what he sees as a turnaround directly to the tax law.
It's just one thing on the foreign policy front. You know, I think the thing that divides this president from previous presidents is that he is not, he believes that there's a connection between the money that is given from the United States and the relationship that he has with that country. And historically, those two things have been separate in terms of military connections and aid that goes to a country. He's made it very clear he doesn't see it that way at all, whether it comes to Europe or whether it comes to Israel or the Palestinians or Pakistan. So I think that's something that's very different about this president. I think we're going to hear some of that tonight.
So he expects something in return for the investment. Amazing.
Exactly.
I should have asked you this question at the outset because it's such an obvious one. Who's sitting, do we know who's sitting with the Trump family tonight?
There's a long list. As you see, the First Lady is being escorted to the box now, wearing a lovely white suit. She has a long list of guests. Let's listen in if we could, Tucker.
Obviously watching the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump, just entered the chamber. There it is. A truly bipartisan moment.
Cabinet.
President Trump's cabinet. One cabinet member traditionally missing, always from every State of the Union address. That person literally in an undisclosed location for practical and traditional reasons. The President's speech is about to begin, as you can see. And Fox News' Bret Baier and Martha MacCallum will be back to continue our live coverage. Sean Hannity and Laura after that. Stay tuned. Fox is on this all night long.
A live look here on Capitol Hill, a beautiful but crisp evening here in the nation's capital, as we are now just moments away from President Trump delivering his first official State of the Union address. Good evening from Washington. I'm Bret Baier.
And I'm Martha MacCallum. President Trump is set to enter the House chamber, like so many before him, to the familiar call of the Sergeant at Arms, announcing the President of the United States to the Speaker of the House and to the American people.
We have full slate of analysts ready to preview and then break down both the president's speech and the Democrats' response. But first, let's get to the chief White House correspondent, John Roberts, to set the stage for us from the North Lawn. Good evening, John.
Brett, good evening to you and to you as well, Martha. I think it's safe to say that the president's first year in office was all about tough partisan issues like Obamacare and tax reform that he needed to get his own party on board to try to pass. And as we saw, didn't get very far with Obamacare repeal and replace. Year two of the Trump presidency, we're told by the White House, is going to be all about shifting gears to issues that he thinks he can get bipartisan support on. Throw down the gauntlet to Democrats to work together with him for the good of the country. First and foremost among those issues will be infrastructure. The president thinks there's a good opportunity to have Democrats work with him on that. He also wants to get a deal on DACA as sort of a starting point for broader immigration reform, though no question that's going to be a tougher lift than infrastructure. As for the Democrats, no sign at this point that the leadership is willing to work with the president, saying that his immigration proposal on DACA is a non-starter, also voicing a lot of skepticism about what the president may have in mind on infrastructure. One thing that I'm told to pay special attention to tonight, Brett and Martha, is the section on North Korea. I'm told the president will have very tough language, but also go down the road of something of a new approach on North Korea. So something to watch closely for this evening.
John Roberts, live on the North Lawn of the White House. John, thanks. We're looking live in the House chamber and the president's cabinet coming in. There you see the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, who's been very forceful on North Korea, Iran, and other issues at the UN.
Small Business Administration, Linda McMahon right behind her, Ben Carson of HUD, as you can see, as well as they gather, and Rex Tillerson in the foreground there. So while we wait, let's bring in our special State of the Union extended panel. Chris Wallace, host of Fox News Sunday. Dana Perino, co-host of The Five.
Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist. Juan Williams, columnist with The Hill and co-host of The Five. And senior political analyst Brit Hume. Britt, you've been through a lot of these. We see them. We see the pomp and circumstance. This seems like a big moment for this president in this moment in time in Washington.
Well, he's in a different situation than he was a year ago when he arrived with all guns blazing. And you'll remember that inaugural address. It was so kind of bellicose. He softened his tone for his first, effectively his first State of the Union address, which was the joint address to Congress about a year ago. Now he's in a different situation than he was at the end of last year. He can't get bills through Congress with 50 or 51 votes. He needs 60, which means he needs Democrats in a way that he really didn't as much in his first year. And I think tonight will be a lot about trying to soften his image in their eyes and make them think, well, this is a guy, we may not agree with him, we may not even like him, but we can do business with him. And I think that's where he will try to take the speech tonight. And it'll be interesting to see if he can do it. My guess is he probably can make a little headway, but you know, the intense feeling about him is pretty strong. It would help him a lot if he could diminish the rage. We'll see if he can.
Chris Wallace, quick thoughts as we understand the president is on his way to the chamber.
Well, real quick, look, we're going to have plenty of time afterwards to talk about what the president said in his speech. For all the talk about a divided Washington, I've been covering these for more than 35 years, and I always get kind of a chill to see the entire government of the United States, the Congress, the executive branch, the president and his cabinet, the chiefs of the staff of the various military services, the Supreme Court, the diplomatic corps. This is a moment, particularly before the speech starts, to celebrate the extraordinary government that we have and what the founders put together. It's all in this room.
And it is. And senators, House members, a few Democrats decided, some 12 House Democrats decided not to show up tonight. As we mentioned before, there will be 5 Democratic responses after this speech. We're moments away from Paul Irving, the House Sergeant at Arms, announcing the President of the United States.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
You want to create a stunning website? I've already done it with Wix. Let me show you how it's done.
You see some folks there crowded on the line to get a handshake. Louis Gohmert there, a big supporter of the president, obviously, and behind the president, the House Majority Leader, and Steve Scalise, the House Majority Whip, who obviously had his own challenges this year coming back from that gunshot on the softball practice. Choosing the electric blue tie tonight, President Trump moving down the row. Juan Williams, let's bring you in. Thoughts on this before we hear from the president tonight?
Well, I think for the Democrats, there's great hope that this might be an opportunity for the president to offer a reprise of the kind of positive, optimistic attitude that he offered at Davos. And we know that Gary Cohn, who was so instrumental in that presentation where he talked America first, but not America alone, has also had a hand in writing this speech, along with Stephen Miller, who is typically the more aggressive, more populist energy, if you will, behind the pen. So the question is how much the president can do in terms of extending a base that is, according to most polls, locked in the mid to upper 30s in terms of approval. And that's evidence, I think, of the extreme political polarization in the country. And tonight, if he can offer some kind of hand to say, you know, I'm looking more presidential, I'm ready to work with Democrats, I think he can deliver a message. But are people able to hear that if he is able to change?
Dana, quick thought as we watch the applause here, which could go on for a bit.
Well, yes, last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, when the president wasn't able to go to Florida for Mar-a-Lago for the 1-year anniversary of his inauguration, he didn't have a chance to celebrate. This is sort of like the first year of a child, right? So the first anniversary is such a big one. The staff has worked so hard, and they actually have the wind at their back with a lot of accomplishments that a year ago, when he gave his joint session of Congress speech, I don't think they knew what they were going to be able to do, but they've accomplished a lot.
Molly, quickly, I should point out the Fox News poll has approval at 45%, and they've seen some numbers moving, which the president and his party are happy about.
Yeah, and he's done very well with his base, and it's the independents that have softened a bit since his election. So I expect this will be the typical speech that reaches out to independents and has sort of a grab bag of gibbies or goodies for them. But he needs to be careful not to switch too much from that to, he's been successful in part because he is so unorthodox in his approach. And having a very traditional speech might not serve him as well as it does in D.C.
Let's listen in to the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, gavel the session to order.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and the distinct honor of presenting to you the President of the United States.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, the First Lady of the United States, and my fellow Americans. Less than 1 year has passed since I first stood at this podium in this majestic chamber to speak on behalf of the American people and to address their concerns, their hopes, and their dreams. That night, our new administration had already taken very swift action. A new tide of optimism was already sweeping across our land. Each day since, we have gone forward with a clear vision and a righteous mission to make America great again for all Americans. Over the last year, we have made incredible progress and achieved extraordinary success. We have faced challenges we expected and others we could never have imagined. We have shared in the heights of victory the first helicopters on the scene in Houston during the Hurricane Harvey. Through 18 hours of wind and rain, Ashley braved live power lines and deep water to help save more than 40 lives. Ashley, we all thank you. Thank you very much. We heard about Americans like firefighter David Dahlberg. He's here with us also. David faced down walls of flame to rescue almost 60 children trapped at a California summer camp threatened by those devastating wildfires. To everyone still recovering in Texas, Florida, Louisiana, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, everywhere, we are with you. We love you, and we always will pull through together, always. Thank you to David and the brave people of California. Thank you very much, David. Great job. Some trials over the past year touched this chamber very personally. With us tonight is one of the toughest people ever to serve in this House. A guy who took a bullet, almost died, and was back to work 3.5 months later. The legend from Louisiana, Congressman Steve Scalise. I think they like you, Steve. We're incredibly grateful for the heroic efforts of the Capitol Police officers, the Alexandria Police, and the doctors, nurses, and paramedics who saved his life and the lives of many others, some in this room. In the aftermath, yes. In the aftermath of that terrible shooting, we came together, not as Republicans or Democrats, but as representatives of the people. But it is not enough to come together only in times of tragedy. Tonight, I call upon all of us to set aside our differences, to seek out common ground, and to summon the unity we need to deliver for the people. This is really the key. These are the people we were elected to serve. Thank you. Over the last year, the world has seen what we always knew, that no people on earth are so fearless or daring or determined as Americans. If there is a mountain, we climb it. If there's a frontier, we cross it. If there's a challenge, we tame it. If there's an opportunity, we seize it. So let's begin tonight by recognizing that the state of our union is strong because our people are strong. And together we are building a safe, strong, and proud America. Since the election, we have created 2.4 million new jobs, including including 200,000 new jobs in manufacturing alone. Tremendous numbers. After years and years of wage stagnation, we are finally seeing rising wages. Unemployment claims have hit a 45-year low. And something I'm very proud of, African American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded. And Hispanic American unemployment has also reached the lowest levels in history. Small business confidence is at an all-time high. The stock market has smashed one record after another, gaining $8 trillion and more in value in just this short period of time. The great news for Americans, 401k, retirement pension, and college savings accounts have gone through the roof. And just as I promised the American people from this podium 11 months ago, we enacted the biggest tax cuts and reforms in American history. Our massive tax cuts provide tremendous relief for the middle class and small business. To lower tax rates for hardworking Americans, we nearly doubled the standard deduction for everyone. Now, the first $24,000 earned by a married couple is completely tax-free. We also doubled the child tax credit. A typical family of four making $75,000 will see their tax bill reduced by $2,000, slashing their tax bill in half. In April, this will be the last time you will ever file under the old and very broken system, and millions of Americans will have more take-home pay starting next month, a lot more. We eliminated an especially cruel tax that fell mostly on Americans making less than $50,000 a year, forcing them to pay tremendous penalties simply because they couldn't afford government-ordered health plans. We repealed the core of the disastrous Obamacare. The individual mandate is now gone. Thank heaven. We slashed the business tax rate from 35% all the way down to 21%, so American companies can compete and win against anyone else anywhere in the world. These changes alone are estimated to increase average family income by more than $4,000. A lot of money. Small businesses have also received a massive tax cut and can now deduct 20% of their business income. Here tonight are Steve Staub and Sandy Keplinger of Staub Manufacturing, a small, beautiful business in Ohio. They've just finished the best year in their 20-year history. Because of tax reform, they are handing out raises, hiring an additional 14 people, and expanding into the building next door. Good feeling. One of Staub's employees, Corey Adams, is also with us tonight. Corey is an all-American worker. He supported himself through high school, lost his job during the 2008 recession, and was later hired by Staub, where he trained to become a welder. Like many hardworking Americans, Corey plans to invest his tax cut raise into his new home and his 2 daughters' education. Corey, please stand. And he's a great welder. I was told that by the man that owns that company that's doing so well. So congratulations, Corey. Since we passed tax cuts, roughly 3 million workers have already gotten tax cut bonuses, many of them thousands and thousands of dollars per worker, and it's getting more every month, every week. Apple has just announced it plans to invest a total of $350 billion in America and hire another 20,000 workers. And just a little while ago, ExxonMobil announced a $50 billion investment in the United States, just a little while ago. This, in fact, is our new American moment. There has never been a better time to start living the American dream. So to every citizen watching at home tonight, no matter where you've been or where you've come from, this is your time. If you work hard, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in America, then you can dream anything. You can be anything. And together, we can achieve absolutely anything. Tonight, I want to talk about what kind of future we're going to have and what kind of a nation we're going to be. All of us together as one team, one people, and one American family can do anything. We all share the same home, the same heart, the same destiny, and the same great American flag. Together, we are rediscovering the American way. In America, we know that faith and family, not government and bureaucracy, are the center of American life. The motto is, "In God we trust." And we celebrate our police, our military, and our amazing veterans as heroes who deserve our total and unwavering support. Here tonight is Preston Sharp, a 12-year-old boy from Redding, California, who noticed that veterans' graves were not marked with flags on Veterans Day. He decided all by himself to change that and started a movement that has now placed 40,000 flags at the graves of our great heroes. Preston, a job well done. Young patriots like Preston teach all of us about our civic duty as Americans. And I met Preston a little while ago, and he is something very special that I can tell you. Great future. Thank you very much for all you've done, Preston. Thank you very much. Preston's reverence for those who have served our nation reminds us of why we salute our flag, why we put our hands on our hearts for the Pledge of Allegiance, and why we proudly stand for the national anthem. Americans love their country, and they deserve a government that shows them the same love and loyalty in return. For the last year, we have sought to restore the bonds of trust between our citizens and their government. Working with the Senate, we are appointing judges who will interpret the Constitution as written, including a great new Supreme Court justice and more circuit court judges than any new administration in the history of our country. We are totally defending our Second Amendment and have taken historic actions to protect religious liberty. And we are serving our brave veterans, including giving our veterans choice in their health care decisions. Last year, Congress also passed, and I signed, the landmark VA Accountability Act. Since its passage, my administration has already removed more than 1,500 VA employees who failed to give our veterans the care they deserve. And we are hiring talented people who love our vets as much as we do. And I will not stop until our veterans are properly taken care of, which has been my promise to them from the very beginning of this great journey. All Americans deserve accountability and respect, and that's what we are giving to our wonderful heroes, our veterans. Thank you. So tonight I call on Congress to empower every cabinet secretary with the authority to reward good workers and to remove federal employees who undermine the public trust or fail the American people. In our drive to make Washington accountable, we have eliminated more regulations in our first year than any administration in the history of our country. We have ended the war on American energy, and we have ended the war on beautiful, clean coal. We are now very proudly an exporter of energy to the world. In Detroit, I halted government mandates that crippled America's great, beautiful auto workers so that we can get Motor City revving its engines again, and that's what's happening. Many car companies are now building and expanding plants in the United States, something we haven't seen for decades. Chrysler is moving a major plant from Mexico to Michigan. Toyota and Mazda are opening up a plant in Alabama, a big one, and we haven't seen this in a long time. It's all coming back. Very soon, auto plants and other plants will be opening up all over our country. This is all news Americans are totally unaccustomed to hearing. For many years, companies and jobs were only leaving us. But now they are roaring back, they're coming back, they want to be where the action is, they want to be in the United States of America. That's where they want to be. Exciting progress is happening every single day. To speed access to breakthrough cures and affordable generic drugs, last year, the FDA approved more new and generic drugs and medical devices than ever before in our country's history. We also believe that patients with terminal conditions, terminal illness, should have access to experimental treatment immediately that could potentially save their lives. People who are terminally ill should not have to go from country to seek a cure. I want to give them a chance right here at home. It's time for Congress to give these wonderful, incredible Americans the right to try. One of my greatest priorities is to reduce the price of prescription drugs. In many other countries, these drugs cost far less than what we pay in the United States, and it's very, very unfair. That is why I've directed my administration to make fixing the injustice of high drug prices one of my top priorities for the year. And prices will come down substantially. Watch. America has also finally turned the page on decades of unfair trade deals that sacrificed our prosperity and shipped away our companies, our jobs, and our wealth. Our nation has lost its wealth, but we're getting it back so fast. The era of economic surrender is totally over. From now on, we expect trading relationships to be fair and, very importantly, reciprocal. We will work to fix bad trade deals and negotiate new ones, and they'll be good ones, but they'll be fair. And we will protect American workers and American intellectual property through strong enforcement of our trade rules. As we rebuild our industries, it is also time to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. America is a nation of builders. We built the Empire State Building in just 1 year. Isn't it a disgrace that it can now take 10 years just to get a minor permit approved for the building of a simple road? I am asking both parties to come together to give us safe, fast, reliable, and modern infrastructure that our economy needs and our people deserve. Tonight, I'm calling on Congress to produce a bill that generates at least $1.5 trillion for the new infrastructure investment that our country so desperately needs. Every federal dollar should be leveraged by partnering with state and local governments and, where appropriate, tapping into private sector investment to permanently fix the infrastructure deficit, and we can do it. Any bill must also streamline the permitting and approval process, getting it down to no more than 2 years and perhaps even 1. Together, we can reclaim our great building heritage. We will build gleaming new roads, bridges, highways, railways, and waterways all across our land. And we will do it with American heart, American hands, and American grit. We want every American to know the dignity of a hard day's work. We want every child to be safe in their home at night. And we want every citizen to be proud of this land that we all love so much. We can lift our citizens from welfare to work, from dependence to independence, and from poverty to prosperity. As tax cuts create new jobs, let's invest in workforce development and let's invest in job training, which we need so badly. Let's open great vocational schools so our future workers can learn a craft and realize their full potential. And let's support working families by supporting paid family leave. As America regains its strength, opportunity must be extended to all citizens. That is why this year we will embark on reforming our prisons to help former inmates who have served their time get a second chance at life. Struggling communities, especially immigrant communities, will also be helped by immigration policies that focus on the best interests of American workers and American families.
For decades, open borders have allowed drugs and gangs to pour into our most vulnerable communities. They've allowed millions of low-wage workers to compete for jobs and wages against the poorest Americans. Most tragically, they have caused the loss of many innocent lives. Here tonight are two fathers and two mothers, Evelyn Rodriguez, Freddie Cuevas, Elizabeth Alvarado, and Robert Mickens. Their two teenage daughters, Kayla Cuevas and Nisa Mickens, were close friends on Long Island. But in September 2016, on the eve of Nisa's 16th birthday, such a happy time it should have been, neither of them came home. These two precious girls were brutally murdered while walking together in their hometown. 6 members of the savage MS-13 gang have been charged with Kayla and Nisa's murders. Many of these gang members took advantage of glaring loopholes in our laws to enter the country as illegal, unaccompanied alien minors and wound up in Kayla and Nisa's high school. Evelyn, Elizabeth, Freddie, and Robert, tonight everyone in this chamber is praying for you. Everyone in America is grieving for you. Please stand. Thank you very much. I want you to know that 320 million hearts are right now breaking for you. We love you. Thank you. While we cannot imagine the depths of that kind of sorrow, we can make sure that other families never have to endure this kind of pain. Tonight I am calling on Congress to finally close the deadly loopholes that have allowed MS-13 and other criminal gangs to break into our country. We have proposed new legislation that will fix our immigration laws and support our ICE and Border Patrol agents. These are great people. These are great, great people that work so hard in the midst of such danger so that this can never happen again. The United States is a compassionate nation. We are proud that we do more than any other country anywhere in the world to help the needy, the struggling, and the underprivileged all over the world. But as President of the United States, my highest loyalty, my greatest compassion, my constant concern is for America's children, America's struggling workers, and America's forgotten communities. I want our youth to grow up to achieve great things. I want our poor to have their chance to rise. So tonight I am extending an open hand to work with members of both parties, Democrats and Republicans, to protect our citizens of every background, color, religion, and creed. My duty and the sacred duty of every elected official in this chamber is to defend Americans, to protect their safety, their families, their communities, and their right to the American dream. Because Americans are dreamers too. Here tonight is one leader in the effort to defend our country, Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent Celestino Martinez. He goes by DJ and CJ. He said, call me either one. So we'll call you CJ. Served 15 years in the Air Force before becoming an ICE agent and spending the last 15 years fighting gang violence and getting dangerous criminals off of our streets. Tough job. At one point, MS-13 leaders ordered CJ's murder, and they wanted it to happen quickly. But he did not cave to threats or to fear. Last May, he commanded an operation to track down gang members on Long Island. His team has arrested nearly 400, including more than 220 MS-13 gang members. And I have to tell you, what the Border Patrol and ICE have done, we have sent thousands and thousands and thousands of MS-13 horrible people out of this country or into our prisons. So I just want to congratulate you, CJ. You're a brave guy. Thank you very much. And I asked CJ, what's the secret? He said, we're just tougher than they are. And I like that answer. Now let's get Congress to send you, and all of the people in this great chamber have to do it. We have no choice. CJ, we're going to send you reinforcements, and we're going to send them to you quickly. It's what you need. Over the next few weeks, the House and Senate will be voting on an immigration reform package. In recent months, my administration has met extensively with both Democrats and Republicans to craft a bipartisan approach to immigration reform. Based on these discussions, we presented Congress with a detailed proposal that should be supported by both parties as a fair compromise, one where nobody gets everything they want, but where our country gets the critical reforms it needs and must have. Here are the 4 pillars of our plan. The first pillar of our framework generously offers a path to citizenship for 1.8 million illegal immigrants who were brought here by their parents at a young age. That covers almost 3 times more people than the previous administration covered. Under our plan, those who meet education and work requirements and show good moral character will be able to become full citizens of the United States over a 12-year period. The second pillar fully secures the border. That means building a great wall on the southern border, and it means hiring more heroes like CJ to keep our communities safe. Crucially, our plan closes the terrible loopholes exploited by criminals and terrorists to enter our country, and it finally ends the horrible and dangerous practice of catch and release. The third pillar ends the visa lottery, a program that randomly hands out green cards without any regard for skill, merit, or the safety of American people. It's time to begin moving toward a merit-based immigration system. One that admits people who are skilled, who want to work, who will contribute to our society, and who will love and respect our country. The fourth and final pillar protects the nuclear family by ending chain migration. Under the current broken system, a single immigrant can bring in virtually unlimited numbers of distant relatives. Under our plan, we focus on the immediate family by limiting sponsorships to spouses and minor children. This vital reform is necessary not just for our economy, but for our security and for the future of America. In recent weeks, 2 terrorist attacks in New York were made possible by the visa lottery and chain migration. In the age of terrorism, these programs present risks we can just no longer afford. It's time to reform. These outdated immigration rules and finally bring our immigration system into the 21st century. These 4 pillars represent a down-the-middle compromise and one that will create a safe, modern, and lawful immigration system. For over 30 years, Washington has tried and failed to solve this problem. This Congress can be the one that finally makes it happen. Most importantly, these 4 pillars will produce legislation that fulfills my ironclad pledge to sign a bill that puts America first. So let's come together, set politics aside, and finally get the job done. These reforms will also support our response to the terrible crisis of opioid and drug addiction. Never before has it been like it is now. It is terrible. We have to do something about it. In 2016, we lost 64,000 Americans to drug overdoses. 174 deaths per day, 7 per hour. We must get much tougher on drug dealers and pushers if we are going to succeed in stopping this scourge. My administration is committed to fighting the drug epidemic and helping get treatment for those in need, for those who have been so terribly hurt. The struggle will be long and it will be difficult, but as Americans always do, in the end, we will succeed, we will prevail. As we have seen tonight, the most difficult challenges bring out the best in America. We see a vivid expression of this truth in the story of the Holetz family of New Mexico. Ryan Holetz is 27 years old, an officer with the Albuquerque Police Department. He's here tonight with his wife, Rebecca. Thank you, Ryan. Last year, Ryan was on duty when he saw a pregnant, homeless woman preparing to inject heroin. When Ryan told her she was going to harm her unborn child, she began to weep. She told him she didn't know where to turn, but badly wanted a safe home for her baby. In that moment, Ryan said he felt God speak to him. You will do it because you can. He heard those words. He took out a picture of his wife and their 4 kids. Then he went home to tell his wife, Rebecca. In an instant, she agreed to adopt. The Holetz named their new daughter Hope. Ryan and Rebecca, you embody the goodness of our nation. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan and Rebecca. As we rebuild America's strength and confidence at home, we are also restoring our strength and standing abroad. Around the world, we face rogue regimes, terrorist groups, and rivals like China and Russia that challenge our interests, our economy, and our values. In confronting these horrible dangers, we know that weakness is the surest path to conflict, and unmatched power is the surest means to our true and great defense. For this reason, I am asking Congress to end the dangerous defense sequester and fully fund our great military. As part of our defense, we must modernize and rebuild our nuclear arsenal, hopefully never having to use it, but making it so strong and so powerful that it will deter any acts of aggression by any other nation or anyone else. Perhaps someday in the future there will be a magical moment when the countries of the world will get together to eliminate their nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, we are not there yet, sadly. Last year, I also pledged that we would work with our allies to extinguish ISIS from the face of the earth. 1 year later, I am proud to report that the coalition to defeat ISIS has liberated very close to 100% of the territory just recently held by these killers in Iraq and in Syria and in other locations as well. But there is much more work to be done. We will continue our fight until ISIS is defeated. Army Staff Sergeant Justin Peck is here tonight. Near Raqqa last November, Justin and his comrade, Chief Petty Officer Kenton Stacy, were on a mission to clear buildings that ISIS had rigged with explosive, so that civilians could return to that city, hopefully soon and hopefully safely. Clearing the second floor of a vital hospital, Kenton Stacy was severely wounded by an explosion. Immediately, Justin bounded into the booby-trapped and unbelievably dangerous and unsafe building and found Kenton, but in very, very bad shape. He applied pressure to the wound and inserted a tube to reopen an airway. He then performed CPR for 20 straight minutes during the ground transport and maintained artificial respiration through 2.5 hours and through emergency surgery. Kenton Stacy would have died if it were not for Justin's selfless love for his fellow warrior. Tonight, Kenton is recovering in Texas. Raqqa is liberated, and Justin is wearing his new Bronze Star with a V for valor. Staff Sergeant Peck, all of America salutes you. Terrorists who do things like place bombs in civilian hospitals are evil. When possible, we have no choice but to annihilate them. When necessary, we must be able to detain and question them. But we must be clear, terrorists are not merely criminals. They are unlawful enemy combatants. And when captured overseas, they should be treated like the terrorists they are. In the past, we have foolishly released hundreds and hundreds of dangerous terrorists, only to meet them again on the battlefield, including the ISIS leader, al-Baghdadi, who we captured, who we had, who we released. So today, I'm keeping another promise. I just signed, prior to walking in, an order directing Secretary Mattis, who is doing a great job. Thank you. To re-examine our military detention policy and to keep open the detention facilities in Guantanamo Bay. I am asking Congress to ensure that in the fight against ISIS and al-Qaeda, we continue to have all necessary power to detain terrorists wherever we chase them down, wherever we find them. And in many cases, for them, it will now be Guantanamo Bay. At the same time, as of a few months ago, our warriors in Afghanistan have new rules of engagement. Along with their heroic Afghan partners, our military is no longer undermined by artificial timelines, and we no longer tell our enemies our plans. Last month, I also took an action endorsed unanimously by the U.S. Senate just months before. I recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Shortly afterwards, dozens of countries voted in the United Nations General Assembly against America's sovereign right to make this decision. In 2016, American taxpayers generously sent those same countries more than $20 billion in aid. That is why tonight I am asking Congress to pass legislation to help ensure American foreign assistance dollars always serve American interests and only go to friends of America, not enemies of America. As we strengthen friendships all around the world, we are also restoring clarity about our adversaries. When the people of Iran rose up against the crimes of their corrupt dictatorship, I did not stay silent. America stands with the people of Iran in their courageous struggle for freedom. I am asking Congress to address the fundamental flaws in the terrible Iran nuclear deal. My administration has also imposed tough sanctions on the communist and socialist dictatorships in Cuba and Venezuela. But no regime has oppressed its own citizens more totally or brutally than the cruel dictatorship in North Korea. North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear missiles could very soon threaten our homeland. We are waging a campaign of maximum pressure to prevent that from ever happening. Past experience has taught us that complacency and concessions only invite aggression and provocation. I will not repeat the mistakes of past administrations that got us into this very dangerous position. We need only look at the depraved character of the North Korean regime to understand the nature of the nuclear threat it could pose to America and to our allies. Otto Warmbier was a hard-working student at the University of Virginia, and a great student he was. On his way to study abroad in Asia, Otto joined a tour to North Korea. At its conclusion, this wonderful young man was arrested and charged with crimes against the state. After a shameful trial, the dictatorship sentenced Otto to 15 years of hard labor before returning him to America last June, horribly injured and on the verge of death. He passed away just days after his return. Otto's wonderful parents, Fred and Cindy Warmbier, are here with us tonight, along with Otto's brother and sister, Austin and Greta. Please. Incredible people. You are powerful witnesses to a menace that threatens our world, and your strength truly inspires us all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Tonight, we pledge to honor Otto's memory with total American resolve. Thank you. Finally, we are joined by one more witness to the ominous nature of this regime. His name is Mr. Ji Sung-ho. In 1996, Sung-ho was a starving boy in North Korea. One day he tried to steal coal from a railroad car to barter for a few scraps of food, which were very hard to get. In the process, he passed out on the train tracks, exhausted from hunger. He woke up as a train ran over his limbs. He then endured multiple amputations without anything to dull the pain or the hurt. His brother and sister gave what little food they had to help him recover and ate dirt themselves, permanently stunting their own growth. Later, he was tortured by North Korean authorities after returning from a brief visit to China. His tormentors wanted to know if he'd met any Christians. He had, and he resolved after that to be free. Sung Ho traveled thousands of miles on crutches all across China and Southeast Asia to freedom. Most of his family followed. His father was caught trying to escape and was tortured to death. Today, he lives in Seoul, where he rescues other defectors and broadcasts into North Korea what the regime fears most, the truth. Today, he has a new leg, but Sung Ho, I understand you still keep those old crutches as a reminder of how far you've come. Your great sacrifice is an inspiration to us all. Please, thank you. Sung Ho's story is a testament to the yearning of every human soul to live in freedom. It was that same yearning for freedom that nearly 250 years ago gave birth to a special place called America. It was a small cluster of colonies caught between a great ocean and a vast wilderness. It was home to an incredible people with a revolutionary idea that they could rule themselves, that they could chart their own destiny, and that together they could light up the entire world. That is what our country has always been about. That is what Americans have always stood for, always strived for, and always done. Atop the dome of this Capitol stands the Statue of Freedom. She stands tall and dignified among the monuments to our ancestors who fought and lived and died to protect her. Monuments to Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln and King. Memorials to the heroes of Yorktown and Saratoga, to young Americans who shed their blood on the shores of Normandy and the fields beyond, and others who went down in the waters of the Pacific and the skies all over Asia. And freedom stands tall over one more monument, this one. This Capitol, this living monument, this is the monument to the American people. We're a people whose heroes live not only in the past, but all around us, defending hope, pride, and defending the American way. They work in every trade. They sacrifice to raise a family. They care for our children at home. They defend our flag abroad. And they are strong moms and brave kids. They are firefighters and police officers and border agents, medics and Marines. But above all else, they are Americans. And this Capitol, this city, this nation belongs entirely to them. Our task is to respect them, to listen to them, to serve them, to protect them, and to always be worthy of them. Americans fill the world with art and music. They push the bounds of science and discovery, and they forever remind us of what we should never, ever forget. The people dreamed this country. The people built this country. And it's the people who are making America great again. As long as we are proud of who we are and what we are fighting for, there is nothing we cannot achieve. As long as we have confidence in our values, faith in our citizens, and trust in our God, we will never fail. Our families will thrive, our people will prosper, and our nation will forever be safe and strong and proud and mighty and free. Thank you, and God bless America. Good night.
And that was President Trump in his first State of the Union address, speaking for an hour and 20 minutes, lengthy State of the Union address, but he knows that he's got a big audience, millions watching, and also one of the lowest approval ratings for any president in their first year in office. So this was, as White House advisors billed it, an opportunity to try and move beyond his political base, to try and present a unifying message. And I was struck that right at the beginning, he talked about people other than himself. He talked about a fighter, police officer, grieving parents, and used that as the way to connect this entire speech.
That's right. He front-loaded the speech with all of that drama there. When I interviewed him during the campaign, he talked about wanting to be a cheerleader for America, and that's what this was. He was a cheerleader of his own policies. He totaled up all the wins that he gives himself, sometimes bending the truth a little bit, but then he was also a cheerleader for the country. And all those stories that he told about patriotism, about the flag, about the national anthem, this is why people gravitated towards his campaign. And when they talked about unity, that is the unity they're talking about. Paint a vision of America to which everybody will then salute. Now, Democrats, though, will have heard plenty in this speech that they will not salute, and that's why you saw so many grumpy faces when he talks about MS-13, the gang, which is very important to him and to his base. What Democrats hear is they hear he's characterizing immigrants basically as violent predators. So in terms of the unity you need to put together an immigration deal, and we should talk about that, Democrats, there was no bridge for them to cross in this picture of America.
No, many of the Democrats at many times looked like they had bitten a couple of lemons, even when he was saying things that most people would agree with. He wants to fight ISIS, he wants to fight the opioid addiction, he wants to fight terrorism, he wants to reduce the price of prescription drugs. And with each one of those causes, he had an example to illustrate why it's so important that we do that, and that he's going to be calling on Congress to give him the money and the resources to do so. I thought it was interesting that there was no mention at any time of Russia or the investigation. I kept waiting for that to happen at some point.
Yeah, why get in the way of his good story that he was telling? You know, he made, as Nora was saying, this was a reality. He was casting this night, and so this was his stage. No reason to bring any bad actors on the stage.
Yeah, I think this reality TV president was trying to create a new reality, a new political reality for himself, and he was trying to sort of take a giant eraser to all those really divisive tweets and try and find a new way to communicate with the American people. But it doesn't erase what has been his record. The record does not erase the record that he's developed.
And also his instincts.
Yeah, and his instincts.
We'll go now to Jeff Glor and Nancy Cordes. They're on the Hill. They too were watching the speech along with all of you. Jeff?
Gail, thanks very much. I think a lot of the images, Nancy, from inside the chamber today did not give you the sense that bipartisanship is necessarily alive and well when you saw a lot of the reactions on either side. But talking specifically about some of these issues, immigration, I think first and foremost, which a lot of people say they want a broad, big deal done. What are the prospects right now?
Well, in fact, that was the only time you heard Democrats actually boo and hiss in the room, was when the president said that immigration policy needs to be changed because right now immigrants can bring in an unlimited number of extended family members, which Democrats say is just not the truth, and there's a backlog that lasts years. And so those are the battle lines when you talk about immigration. Both sides will say they want to do something about these so-called dreamers. They want to come to an agreement quickly, and yet what Democrats want to do about it, what Republicans want to do about it is so different. Leaders say that they met today, they made some progress, but as long as you're talking about keeping immigrant families from being able to bring in siblings and parents, adult children, Democrats are going to balk.
The debate over nuclear families, how that family immigration plays out. And you do hear these two parallel tracks right now. One is we're making progress, and then others say, neither party necessarily has this enormous impetus to get this done before midterms.
Right, and Republicans are thrilled that the president laid out those 4 pillars as he described them tonight, and yet there are a lot of conservatives who are very frustrated with his proposal of a pathway to citizenship, even just for this narrow dreamer population. They say that's amnesty and opens the door for more immigrants to get the same treatment.
All right, plenty more to unpack here, but for now, back to Nora in New York.
All right, Jeff and Nancy, thank you. White House and Senior Foreign Affairs Correspondent Margaret Brennan is with us. Margaret, good evening. What did you hear on foreign policy?
I was surprised. 15,000 troops in Afghanistan. We're still a country at war, and it merited just 2 lines in this speech. Russia only in the context of being a rival, and he really quickly moved on. Not a lot on trade in here, which I thought was interesting, given that this was such a big part of his protectionist mantra on the campaign trail. Another thing that stood out, Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, that detention facility, his big reveal was that he had signed this executive order basically reversing what President Obama had said to do, which was to shutter it and get the detainees transferred to other countries. He opened the door to actually bringing them off the battlefield there, something very near and dear to John Kelly's heart, the chief of staff, because he used to oversee this detention facility. That's going to be very controversial. And lastly, North Korea, as you pointed out, I thought there was an interesting approach in going through it as a human rights issue. He tried to personalize it, talking about Otto Warmbier, the University of Virginia student who had died.
His parents there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and there's
difficult.
still 3 Americans being held there. Bringing in the defector from North Korea. He didn't talk about fire and fury. He didn't talk in a belligerent way about it. He reached out on the issue of values, which is interesting for an administration that usually tries to avoid human rights and even makes a virtue out of not focusing publicly on human rights. It was an interesting
Why do you suppose, Margaret, he didn't spend much time on Afghanistan, considering what is happening in Afghanistan and our involvement in it?
And his pride about the military, to be very frank with you, I think because of what's happening the past week, with 3 major terrorist attacks in a little over a week, and the country only controls about 50% of the actual territory now.
All right, Margaret Brennan, thank you very much.
The president has now left the House chamber. We're just minutes away from the Democratic response. It will be delivered by a Kennedy. We'll bring you the rebuttal from Massachusetts Congressman Joe Kennedy III when our live coverage of the State of the Union address continues right here on CBS.
Want real news right now? We've got the app for that.
This is CBSN.
We're just on the front lines. The police have surrounded the area.
The marchers were saying, let us march. We want to march.
CBSN. CBS News. Always on.
CBS News. Real news.
Tonight, I am extending an open hand to work with members of both parties, Democrats and Republicans, to protect our citizens of every background, color, religion, and creed.
And of course, President Trump lobbied for his immigration reform plan just minutes ago. In his first State of the Union address, he declared that the U.S. is a compassionate nation and that, quote, Americans are dreamers too. In a few moments, we'll see the Democratic response. Welcome back to CBS News Live coverage. The rebuttal to the State of the Union address is often a chance to introduce a fresh face and a rising star to a national audience. Yet tonight's response will come from